welcome to Synchronicity. I hope you've had a good week. I don't remember when I'm putting these out each prior week. It's roughly a week, right? That's what we're going for. I hope you are doing well. I hope the what we were talking about last week, this kind of transitional period, I hope you are seeing and glimpsing, if not fully clicking into kind of what is to come. We're in the midst of coming into. There is a big shift going on. And, at this time of year, the end of the year in December, that's not uncommon to feel. There's a new year flipping on the solar calendar that makes people feel, hopeful, new energy, that type of stuff. This feels qualitatively different to me. I've been speaking about this with all of my woo friends who are sensitive to energy, and it just feels like we really are coming out of this kind of murky. It's almost like we had if you want to just look at it in 3D world terms, like the pandemic hangover. And I know, listen, the virus is going around now. The stuff, it's worse. It's bad. It's not great. We haven't solved everything. I do find it interesting that there's a lot of people who got very angry at me when I said, COVID is just the flu. I don't know anyone, if you've had personal experience with this, anyone who's gotten the flu recently, a million times worse than COVID than what it is now. It's weird, right? And I understand the virus changed. I understand the narratives changed. I understand all of that. I'm just saying, the point isn't that I'm right, you're wrong, you're right, I'm wrong. It's that maybe we don't take such hardline stances on this, and if we make a decision related to our body, we don't push that on other people. Idea. Okay. Today, we're going to talk a lot about the subconscious mind. I'm not sure if you know this. I've probably mentioned it a few times. A contemporary of Neville Goddard's, who also studied with Abdullah, was Dr. Joseph Murphy, and he wrote amazing books about the power of the subconscious mind. He does a lot of money stuff. So if you're really if money is a theme in your life, which it would be hard to imagine it isn't, he's particularly helpful for that. So we're going to go over some of his techniques and some of what he spoke about, but also just weave it into the overall narrative of how this works, how this existence, how consciousness works. We're going to weave that in. Before we get started, I want to mention they've been open for a few days now for patrons. The Christ Consciousness readings are officially open. So I know many of you have been asking me about this. These are the long form recorded readings, right? We do some astrology, we do some tarot, we really talk about Christ consciousness and actualization and just how this fits into the themes of your life. I skipped it last year, but we had done it the previous years, and they're usually the most popular. I really only devote about a week out of the year for these types of readings. I'm definitely feeling the reading energy lately. They've been really good. They've been really positive. I like them as a modality. So I'll try to offer some other stuff on Instagram or other places like that, little quick hitters. But if you want a long form, 45-minute reading, those will be open. You can find that, I guess there was some confusion for some people, on syncpodcast.com. That's SYNC podcast.com/readings. That's it. There should be a tab on the top left. So that's going on. If you're interested in that, go ahead and check it out, because I know a lot of you have been asking me, when are you doing it? I'm like, I'm doing it. I do it. Okay. So let's talk about your subconscious mind. So we look at kind of the conscious mind, and for better or worse, that's how we view the world, through our conscious mind, right? This is the more logical, piece things together, excuse me, mind. We're aware of what's going on. We have deduced what's happening. We have inferred what's happening, as opposed to the subconscious mind, which is much more intuitive. It's much more general. It's broader. It also happens to be the aspect of our mind that is very generative. It's the generative aspect of the mind. We could say the conscious mind is reflective. It's viewing what has already been generated and then looking into that and making observations about what's going on, right? Like that's what the conscious mind, the masculine mind, the logical mind would be doing. The subconscious mind is where like think of the classic visualization of the iceberg on the water. You see the massive iceberg above the water. That wow, it's so big, but if you look underneath it, it's even bigger. To keep that structure afloat, to have it actually penetrate through that vector of consciousness of iceberg land, it's much bigger below. So there's a lot of power there. This is the archetypal realm, just big time energies, right? And really, our conscious mind is like, even if like we've really put work into kind of being more aware of things consciously, like, eh, it's relatively puny and small in comparison. That's not a value or qualitative judgment. They work in tandem wonderfully to create this experience of life. It's just that in terms of like overall force, it's a weaker force, right? It's just the way it is. Like if you could measure it, its impact in percentages, it would be a smaller percentage in terms of actually what's getting done. So, how do we interact with our subconscious mind? What can we do to impress things upon it so they can get expressed in our reality? Well, one of the things we can do is slowly try to examine, not even slowly, just examine what you really believe about the world. And you could say, well, I know what I believe. This is the situation that's going on. Let's say we'll focus on the Joseph Murphy, a classic example. Let's say you got a lot of bills. Let's say you got a lot of debt. Who doesn't, right? Regardless of what's going on in your situation, people deal with bills. You may be comfortably meeting ends meet every single month, or you may not be. But let's say you're not. Let's say you're dealing with some issue where you're stressed out. The bills are mounting. The debt is mounting. The ability to function as a human being in the capitalist society is diminishing. What do you do? Well, there's a few things you can do. You can think about the problems, figure out how to solve the problems, acknowledge that you don't have a lot of money, look at the circumstances of why you don't have money, look at the forces that are at play that prevent you from making money, or the things that you lack that you don't have that won't allow you to get what you need. That's one way to go about it. That's certainly focusing on it. Or you can just pretty much, I don't want to say childishly, but not focus on that at all. Shift your internal monologue, your internal belief system. And we'll talk about specifically some ways to do that. I find writing things down, literally writing them down, not typing them out, writing them down onto a piece of paper is very, very effective. When I look back to periods of my life where it was like crazy, just next level manifestation stuff, usually writing things down. Just as a general rule, it really kind of fixes the bridge. It creates a bridge between your subconscious and your conscious, right? So we're going to say, go back to the example of not having money. So what is something you could say, or what is something you could examine your internal belief structure with? Could you say, all right, I don't have enough money because once you're there, I don't have enough money, anything after that, you've already stated your situation and you have affirmed its existence, right? Joseph Murphy was huge on what he called affirmations. So affirmations would be like, every day I'm getting healthier, wealthier, wiser, and I'm more at peace. And you say that internally to yourself. Now, you may say that's some hokey shit, right? This is some Stuart Smalley Saturday Night Live looking in the mirror saying, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough. And of course, there is an aspect of it, but you're not doing this in a performative sense to try to trick yourself into believing something. That's really not what you're doing. What you're saying is, I'm going to be circumventing the judgmental, linear, referential, reflective aspect of my mind and saying something deep enough to myself where I will know the difference of whether I believe this is true or not, or whether I think this is silly or not, or whether this is something that's possible or not. You're going to know that. So that's the power of how these work. As you routinely say things to yourself internally, as you affirm things, as you claim things, as you say, this is mine, this is my power, this is what I have innately in me, my existence is predicated on my belief systems, you then get to start playing with them. And what you're trying to do is communicate. We do this through art. We do this through substances. We do this through meditation. We do this through just anytime we can shut down the mind that is actively going on. Not in like you need to shut down because you're a menace, but just because we are lacking the component of just kind of, let's things emanate. Here are things where they're coming from. I can witness that rather than be the causative structure of like what's going on. So why are we doing this? Why are we trying to communicate to an aspect of our mind that is elusive at best, maybe just completely hidden from our view at all times at worst, right? I don't know if that's at worst, but just not being completely aware of it. Well, part of the reason is our subconscious, our intuitive faculty of mind, our generative cause of mind. Again, it's in the word. It literally creates what your experience is. Whenever you've had massive scale shifts in your reality, it's because what you were willing to believe, either you've suspended your disbelief or you're willing to believe something that was outside of the typical framework of how you thought things work, those things will then be allowed to prosper. Like, this is why we kind of go, like, the imaginal techniques are a way of proving this fact to yourself. It's also just like a nuts and bolts good way of going about it because like it is effective, but this stuff is also deeply effective and it really keeps you on your toes, so to speak, when things are kind of going wonky. Also, there's at least in my experience an effect that is clear, which is you really have to start taking accountability on a deep fundamental level for how your world is going, right? And we've spoken about how that's a good and bad thing plenty of times on this show, but basically you're going to lose the ability to, blame circumstances, blame situations, blame other people. You have to pick up the mantle and say, well, I'm ultimately responsible for what's going on in my life on a deep, deep level. My existence is actually predicated on how I view the world. And that's why I have this, existence the way I know it. That's a big load for a lot of people. Big load, probably not the best term to use there, but nevertheless, we're going to go with it. It's a heavy load to carry. Loads just in general, not sounding like a good word these days. You know what I mean? Just it's too many connotations at this point. So yeah, you really are trying to like on a deep level have a conversation with the aspect of yourself that doesn't really want to have a conversation, doesn't really speak in words, doesn't really speak in languages, but it is a felt thing. If you say, like, let's say all external evidence is that, things are going bad. You're not doing well. You're not going, the trajectory has not been in, let's say, the positive direction. You can look at financial markets and just be like, okay, we clearly see it's in a downtrend. At that point, are you willing to not hyper focus on that as an element, but say to yourself, well, there is this innate power that I have. I may not be experienced with it yet, but I have had glimpses of it, or I've heard people talk about it, that allows me to really create situations or circumstances or experiences in my life before they happen, merely by believing that their inevitability is just a fact. Can I do that? And at first it may feel like, trying to ride a wild horse, like just completely out of control, not working, want to give up, falling off the horse, not working right. You feel like a fool. Of course you have debt. Of course you have these issues in your relationship, whatever it is for you, your job issues. What point do you actually kind of give it a real commitment to say to yourself, like you can look at these phrases, these Joseph Murphyan phrases that are like, every day I'm more at peace. I'm learning more and more. I'm prospering. I'm making decisions out of love. Like kind of these like goofy, like overly saccharine positive statements. I'm at peace. But as you genuinely do it internally as a process, you don't have to share it with people. You don't have to be like me and like blabber about the techniques to everyone. In fact, I really wouldn't recommend it. At this point, I think the only reason I do it is that I've taken so much heat in the past before like blabbing about stuff before I really put it into action that I kind of know what that feels like. Give yourself some action time. Don't worry, you'll still be proven wrong much more than you would ever expect. But just like do this as an internal process. One of the things we're going to launch either at the end of this month or the beginning of January is like a something day challenge where we're really going to like commit, go through something on a regular basis and try to like create some cool shit in our lives, in our worlds, and notice and hopefully have like a process where we're checking in regularly to see how we're doing. How do we feel? Do we believe this is stupid today? Are we not going to believe this today? Are things so bad that we'd be foolish to ignore them type of day? Like that skill is something that is like critically important because let's just like track this out a little bit. Let's say you really get good at claiming what is rightfully yours, which is just your ability to create a world that is what you would like it to be. Let's say you really get good at that process. What are you going to do? What do you do once those issues are determined or that fact has been proven to you? That's where we want to get to. I'm not telling you I have the answer for you. It could be something completely different for every single person. And in fact, it is usually, despite where, everyone's a DJ now, everyone's doing this. Also, can we talk about the weird trend on TikTok where like aspiring music producers will like, it'll just be like a front shot of them at their desk, like head on, and they're listening to their song and just like kind of like awkwardly dancing to it or like what they think is cool, like they're really feeling it. But like at the end of the day, you're just looking at someone kind of like close their eyes and move their head in a weird way. What is that? You don't have to convince people that your music makes your head bop. And I appreciate that people, I fall on the other side where I really don't even like people like, where do we find your music? How do we get it? Just so if people are asking, there is a SoundCloud, and then I put a lot of the stuff from the show on the Patreon, like as audio files that you can download for people asking. But like I skew the other way, and that's not necessarily the right approach either. But like this, like let me just get every single thing I do out there approach also potentially comes with its own pitfalls. What does it say about me that I'm judging the people who are going and doing that? I should probably be doing that. You know what I mean? It's like it's this weird thing. Anyway, hence why our conscious mind, our mind that is referential, is kind of a dick. It just happens. It's okay. But I don't know. I just, whenever I see those videos, I'm like, what is this? Why is this a thing? But you ask yourself a lot these days watching TikTok. TikTok is a menace, by the way. Not because it's some CCP. Someone was like, what's the CCP? Communist, what is it? Chinese Communist Party. It's they're just spying on us, whatever. Not because of that, but because it really, like, you can learn stuff on TikTok. Like, I learned a lot about Chat GPT, which we spoke about. I spoke about it last week, right? Definitely spoke about it on the Patreon. But it is, like, pretty amazing how quickly you can learn things if that's the vein you get into with TikTok. It's also just highly addictive. I mean, it really, like, whatever people complain about the attention span stuff, those quick hits of dopamine or whatever it is, hey, they figured out how to do it. It was someone's dream to manufacture something that gave people enough, like, dopamine shots every, few seconds that they continued to stay on an app and advertising and whatnot. I don't know. It's a good idea. It works. Be like, fuck. When you are fucked, this is how you know you're fucked as a TikTok user. When the lady comes on and she's like, hey, you have been scrolling for way too long. Maybe you should go outside. And you're like, damn it, lady. Fuck off. I don't want to be I know I've been here for an hour straight watching TikToks. You don't got to fucking tell me that shit. But it's nice. I'm sure they have to legally do that. So they're like, listen, we're not trying to actively eat people's brains, but maybe that'll happen. Anyway, I like TikTok. It's cool. Like any format that learns and adapts to what you like. It's just important to then be aware of like knowing what it thinks you like or what you're actually investing your attention in. Because I know there's like people who will watch stuff they don't like. That makes them mad, makes them angry. it's also just such a weird peak. It is still social media. You get to see people recording and making videos about things that they care about, that they think are funny. It's like really, it's insightful. You learn about types of people that you didn't even know or that you just hypothetically thought existed. I don't know. Maybe they're all just characters and personas, but whatever. Um, yeah. So back to the subconscious stuff here. We're really trying to alter that aspect of our being. Again, this is easier said than done in some cases because we don't get that clear, open access all the time to like what our deep inherent belief structures are. But that's why you say those things. That's why you think about things the way you do with the imaginal stuff. You try to challenge your belief systems just to get a reference point. It's like radar, right? You send this ping out there and it pings off something and it comes back and it says, okay, this is the point. This is the location of it. So that's kind of what we're doing energetically when we're doing things like affirmations or trying to work with the subconscious or using Chat GPT to write a hypnotic script for manifestation. I saw that on TikTok the other day. There's a lot of different ways. We're also, I don't know if people are aware of this, like we are hitting the fucking technological growth curve like nobody's business. Like this was a felt thing when you saw how quickly like the internet evolved and just like how far technology has come in the past 20 years. It was clear that it's like kind of getting exponential, but like cold fusion, the ability to input energy and output more energy than was input, which basically speaks to, cleaner, efficient, more efficient, better energy, cheaper energy for the planet. I mean, I'm sure that'll take a long time for all the players to get in place to kind of try to monopolize that from a economic standpoint. Another thing I'll just get into, like with endless supply, right? Endless supply of everything. Don't be fooled into thinking that there isn't enough for everyone. What? Are there not enough Lamborghinis for everyone? Are there not enough $200 million mansions for everyone? So what? You don't even want that shit. Do you know how tired you would be of a Lamborghini outside of a flex after like, I don't know, maybe if you drove it like and you lived in a great place and you could like drive it all the time, maybe 6 months to a year. And then it would just be a reminder of something that you don't really use or you just get to show off for other people. So you don't really want a Lamborghini. And if you do, by all means, go get your Bugatti. Go get your Lamborghini. That might be cool. My oldest son really likes cars. I feel like he would maybe really appreciate a Bugatti. But even then, I know he would get sick of it after a couple of weeks. But my point is that there's not scarcity. There is an endless supply. I mean that on a deeply metaphysical, like woo-woo level. Infinite, endless supply of anything. Also, to be clear, infinite lack. You can tap into the idea that there's not enough infinitely as well. You're not bound to the upper ranges of infinite supply. You could view it as infinite, never enough. That's the hungry ghost phenomena, right? In Buddhist cosmology, right? You would have the hungry ghosts with the super big mouths and huge bellies, but tiny little throats. They can't only get so much in at the same time. It's just like, what a nightmare. Or is it tiny, tiny mouths and huge bellies? Whatever it is. It's just like, never going to be satisfied. You're never going to get enough. So focus on the things truly that you got to know on some level what it is you really want to be doing here to be able to do that. Does that make sense? You can be open. You can be curious about what that may be. You don't have to have it like hammered out specifically what it is. You could be in the realm. You could be like, well, I just want to, have adventures or whatever it is. Like there's some way of doing this where you legitimately can like kind of get yourself in position to be doing something you've always dreamt of doing. Just be honest with yourself as much as you're able to. You do need to possess the ability of not paying attention to things that maybe you think you should be paying attention to just for a little bit and just as an experiment. I'm not saying be neglectful. I'm not saying be outwardly risky. That has worked for me quite often, but there has to be like a firm confidence that you're going to give yourself a good landing. Got to stick the landing kind of, right? Maybe you can take a step forward at worst, right? We get the metaphor here, the gymnastics when they jump off the thing and the land. You got to stick the landing. That's important. And that means you have to have like pretty good confidence that this is how things work and have enough experience to prove that to yourself. Shouldn't always be a blind leap of faith, right? You're not always the fool in the tarot. You're not always the person just like entering new beginnings by just completely jumping off the cliff. But there is a lot of value in that. I think we spoke, was it last week, about uncertainty and not knowingness and how friction and discomfort can be like a huge part of what propels us forward. But doesn't always have to be like that. You can also imagine and realize infinite supply. Back to the cold fusion thing, like the advances of all of this stuff. I like that someone could think that this is maybe like edited and cut. Nope, this is just actually how my brain works. It finishes the train of thought and goes back to the other thing. This cold fusion stuff is like a big deal, right? In 10, 20, 30 years, it'll become more apparent as like the fundamental energy situation changes. But it should be pretty cool. Like it's a big deal. I certainly, something I've been thinking about ever since I saw The Saint. Remember the movie with Val Kilmer, Elizabeth Shue? It's a good movie. They got to solve the end of cold fusion. The guy comes up with the equation that solves it all. And there's been like ongoing conspiracy. Let's just shorten it to conspiracy theories that, you know, the people in this country and in Africa and the Middle East and Europe, they created these things that create free energy and they're killed by the government. I don't know. Clearly governments kill people. Clearly that happens, but I don't know. I'm not looking into that stuff. I mean, if you try to invent cold fusion, good for you. But the U.S. government has announced that there's been a big breakthrough there. So take that for what it's worth. I wouldn't be surprised if this technology has been around a lot longer than people think, but that's just kind of the cynic in me when it comes to politics and government. I'm not going to speak about it too much, but the SBF thing, him getting arrested, I addressed this on the Patreon, just kind of in like a deep dive into the crypto world stuff. Crypto is still one of my favorite places for, just energy moving around, volatility, growth, contractions. Anyone who is telling you crypto is dead, remember who they are when it's back up, right? Remember who they are. See if they're the same people who are saying that you got lucky or it's all a scam. And, you know, it's like see if they're the same people, because that is a theme that tends to happen. It's not dead. I'm not saying this because like I have a guarantee that crypto is going to go up again. It's just like, I mean, does the sun come up every day? Does it set every night? Is that something you're used to? Is it a predictable cycle that you've seen that you have enough confidence in that you think it's going to happen? Could something stop it? Of course, asteroid could hit the moon or some shit, but it's just something you can kind of just predictably see that it's a cyclical thing. And so, yeah, it sucks when prices go down, and it sucks if you bought higher, and it sucks if you didn't sell at the top or when you were in profit or whatever it is, but it will go back up again. I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing. Go to the Discord for that. I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing because it's not financial advice, but like, you know, try to figure out where we are in the cycle. Are we closer to the bottom or are we closer to the top? It doesn't mean you couldn't put money in, things go 50% down. Do I think that's likely? No. Could happen though. So just like, again, anytime you're playing around with this stuff, don't put money in that you can't afford to lose. And that means something different to every single person. But it's generally a good rule that if it goes away, every scam you go into, you got to be like, you know what? 50-50 shot. This works or it doesn't. That's a pretty good, you go with coin flip route. Anyway, with the technological like curve, like this is a big deal. This will affect every aspect of how we interact with each other, how we create things, how art is made, how creativity is used. AI is going to be the buzzword and the theme of the next technological cycle, right? Along with, you know, machine learning and autonomous machines and stuff like that. That's going to be the next big theme. I don't think that's like a wild gamble to say. The metaverse, all that overlay area of it, I'm sure will also come, but just don't get too caught up in the buzzy portrayal of this stuff, try to figure out how to actually use it if it's something you're interested in. Like, this is not to say you have to get on computers and use your phones to solve things and issues. That's potentially a trap too. I just mean, like, if this is something you view as potentially helpful for you in terms of learning, um, whatever it is, people are going to YouTube, taking transcripts, right? You can just download, there's a little button, 3 little dots, take the transcripts, copy the transcripts, put it into Chat GPT, and ask it to give you a summary of what this video is about, this transcript is about, in 15 sentences or whatever it is, in any format, 15 bullet points. It will do that in like less than a minute. That's nuts. It's like, hey, can someone go and take notes on this for me? I mean, there's still a human element that's not there, and this stuff isn't perfected, but like that's the beginning of how this stuff works. There's people who can generate code who know nothing about coding. That's a big shift up technologically for a lot of reasons. It's kind of like when music like programs, DAWs, started getting like much more popular in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. You then saw this explosion. I mean, I can't tell you how many videos of creative production techniques I see on TikTok from all ranges of people, young people, old people, established people, nobody people just doing it in their bedrooms. Really good fucking tricks, really good tips that I never would have thought of. And it's just, you saw this kind of like horizontal and then vertical explosion in terms of like knowledge and growth. You will see that with these developments in how people can access and parse information and choose to focus on the things they want to, and just do things, put together videos. There's like AI software for productions and, video and text them this and voice things. And it's pretty nuts. So I just think it's going to be an exciting time for artists and creation and advances. And that's cool. We get a lot of bad news. We get a lot of bad media cycle events between viruses and wars. And it's not to say that's not going on for large segments of the population. We don't want to bury our head in the sand completely. But you just, like, how much space do you have in your mind to devote to all of that? Are you going to do something about it? That's the biggest question. What's the point? What are you going to do? Now, you can always do something. You can imagine it to be something. You can affirm that everything is actually moving in a great trajectory, even if it appears that it's not. You can do all these different things, but like, what are you really going to go solve some crisis? Are you going to go make sure all of your recycling is going to the right plant? It's not, by the way. It hasn't been ever. A lot of it just ends up in the ocean, but, it's just not. They burn a lot. A lot just ends up in the trash. I'm sorry. I know they pitched us this dream of recycling like it was this grand thing. It's really not a thing. It's unfortunate. It should be. It seems like a good idea. But I also like people, my climate change. Listen, I don't think we should be polluting our natural eco environments, right? Or that's not a good idea in general, just because it doesn't seem like it's something you should be doing. It's like you see like an oil covered lake. It's not like, it seems good. This is better. This is improvement. I want all these ducks covered in oil. Better. No one thinks that. So, I mean, clearly think of the impact of what we're doing. But is it causing climate change specifically? Has there been massive peaks of climate change in the past that we don't know how that happened, and it probably didn't happen through technological means or agricultural means? Like, what? Just, there's bigger. The point is, don't get caught up in it. Do what intuitively feels right for you. And if on the side or as your main thrust, you're really claiming health, wealth, peace, joy, happiness, fulfillingness, those things, what do you think the world starts to look like? Do you think people maybe care? Like, what if, people really had the time to care about their local environment? Who's got the fucking time, right? You have kids, you have children. So, like, come on. And, like, time is, yes, it's not linear and it doesn't exist. Facts, double facts. But if you're plugged into the matrix of time, you certainly are acting like it exists. You're certainly adhering to your 24-hour cycle more often than not. It'd be cool to just change that, right? Just like, I'm doing 22. Feels better to me. I'm doing that. Good luck. I'll have my own system. I'm sure that's only a matter of time. where people are just like revolting against the timekeeping system. We already are. The lunar system makes a lot of sense. Solar system kind of retrofitted on. They're skipping days. I think if you go back to like a certain date, there's like 18 days of it, like an October missing or something. It's fucked up shit. Like the math didn't make sense. Like, yeah, take out these 18 days. It's like, okay. I didn't know you could do that, but all right. Sounds good. Back to the theme, subconscious. Really like the point of, I highly recommend go check out some Joseph Murphy YouTube videos. The audiobooks are also great on Audible, on Power of the Subconscious Mind. There's some other specific ones for like money stuff. Really, really smart, really cool. I had some very weird dreams. I fell asleep to one of the books last night and I just kept fighting. It was so much about like affirming and consciousness in my dreams. They were the opposite. I was like fighting against like positives. I'm like, oh, but this isn't positive. Such a dream. Fucking, it's like, no, this world's not good. It was like some weird, bizarro alternate universe where everything was like kind of like mean and fucked up and off. And like, it was weird. It was like a hellscape. And like, I'm sure I'm like listening to this thing of like, everything is great. Like the appropriate states of like wealth and health and wonderful, comfortable feelings. I'm like, this is not my dream experience. But there's a point in that. I get served that literal example of that dichotomy for a reason. It's like, that is the challenge. That is the game that you are going to be playing. It is going to be a bit of War of Worlds, right? A multiverse kind of clash. And what do you want to believe at this point? All of the evidence that condemns you to an existence that seems punishing, punitive, not that fun, or that you actually, based on your internal structure of beliefs, can shift your experience of life? We're going to start writing things down. Can I say that this week? If you want to do, we'll start it next week. If you want to do this like challenge, I don't want to call it a challenge, like manifestation challenge, blah, blah, blarf my pants. But if you want to participate in this, we'll say like 2 weeks, something or other, maybe 30 days, get yourself a notebook, get yourself a pen, get those prepped. You can start early too. Right now I start early. I write the date. I write I am, yada, yada, I am, yada, yada, I am, yada, yada. I just write yada, yada. That's literally verbatim what I write. But I do that for each day and I get to see what themes are important, what's coming up on my mind, what goals do I have, what pops up. It's just a nice way that's how I get started. But anyway, we're going to start trying to do some cool stuff together as a group. There's thousands of us, right? On a good week, this show can get 10, 20,000 listeners. So that's a lot of people. Not everyone's going to do this, but if like 5% of people do that, that's still a shitload of people. And let's see what we can do for our own lives, for maybe people in our lives, for just overall things. We're going to focus on our stuff, our stuff. Okay, cool. Patreon still going strong. I'm actually doing lives. It's a real thing now. People in there know, like, we're actually doing stuff. We're interacting and posting things. I figured out I could just do voice notes when like idea strikes me about a certain thing that people have been asking about or I'm interested in. I can just do a voice note and I post that on the Patreon. So it's a much more active place. We do the live streams. We had music last time. We will continue that. We do readings. We have fun stuff. Maybe we'll do one next week sometime. That would be cool. Yeah, that's it. And then the Christ consciousness readings, you know what those are about. If you don't, go look at them. They're 45-minute readings. They're recorded. It's good stuff. Those, you got to check the calendar. They're filling up, so you got to check the calendar on that. I tried to also extend it to West Coast people. Also, West Coast people, for readings, I'll try to open up some like Instagram impromptu ones later in the evenings. My schedule is much better now. I'm actually like pulling some days out where I can be up later. So we'll try to do some West Coast live streams too, because I know there's people out there, but we record them. It's fun. Anyway, somehow every week, I don't know how the fuck I talk this long. Hopefully you got something. Go check out the Joseph Murphy stuff. Work with your subconscious. Really, like, it is a powerful thing. It is how you kind of generate your reality. So do that. All right. Love ya. Bye-bye.
thoughts with